think I'll just get started. I don't actually have Kerry Mahoney today to help me facilitate, so my daughter's on the line helping me facilitate. but we do have another Kerry, and we're so lucky. I'm so grateful for Kerry Magro to come on today. When I think about where we are um, currently with the COVID crisis, I feel like everybody really needs a little bit of hope. And in general, when I think of Kerry, he gives me hope. So I was very, very happy to have him say yes and come and join us today. For those of you who don't know Dr. Magro, he is an award-winning author who has just, if you haven't read his books, get them, they're incredible. He's also an award-winning speaker, and he's a consultant to HBO. He runs nonprofits, a huge social media group, and you know, we're just really, really lucky to have him as part of our community. And I was happy to have him talk to us today just about his experiences through COVID, you know, as a person with autism, and also with all of his connections to the community. And just really happy to have you. So thank you, Kerry, for being here.
Anytime. I'm really glad to be here. And I hope everyone is staying safe, first and foremost, but also is doing well in terms of mental health as well. And just remembering that it takes a village, and don't feel like you have to go through this whole situation alone, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the air. So definitely just know that you're not alone in this situation.
That's wonderful. Okay, so I'm just giving you guys the agenda for today, and then we'll let Kerry take it away. We're going to do some time with Kerry and a Q&A. I'll give you a quick state update, because some things have obviously gone on this week that we can talk about. And just again, touching on the federal initiative for the Package 4 HEROES Act. So yeah, I'll just turn it over to you now, Kerry.
Sure. So Maura and me were talking about how we would actually go about presenting today's topic. And one of the things I really wanted to talk about, not only to give you a snapshot into my journey growing up with autism, but also to just give you some helpful tips, especially right now, on how to actually go about establishing a routine for yourself during COVID-19, and really how to just get through the next few months, because I know it's been very uncertain, especially in different areas of the world. I'm speaking to all of you from New Jersey, where we have the second highest COVID cases, right next to New York. So it's been a very challenging time here. So I was diagnosed with autism in 1992. So when I was 4 years old, when the numbers of autism were about 1 in every 1,000 being diagnosed in the United States. And now it's 1 in 54. And growing up, experts said I would basically be lucky to graduate from high school. And now I speak in front of all of you today as somebody who could just say that he graduated with his doctorate in educational technology leadership. And I've had the wonderful opportunity for the past 9 years to have partnered with a speaker bureau called the National Speakers Association, and travel the globe speaking not only about my journey growing up with autism, but inclusion, best employment practices for those who want to hire people with disabilities in the workplace. It definitely was a long, trying road growing up, but one of the things I could truly say is that I really stuck to my key interest. I had the typical therapies that every other kid had, the main three: occupational, speech, and physical. And then I had music and theater therapy integrated when I was a little bit older. And my background comes from, I'm a little bit all over the place. I come from a business background, then a communications background, and then finally a doctorate in education. So I can potentially go and actually teach on the university level. As Maura mentioned, one of my projects that I get the opportunity to work on is consulting. So I got the opportunity to work on HBO's TV series, Mrs. Fletcher, based on one of the characters on that TV show. being a nonverbal boy who's on the autism spectrum. So actually getting to share some of my own personal experiences being nonverbal for the first few years of my life, and basically trying to make that character as realistic as humanly possible. So I've gotten the opportunity to work with the entertainment industry for the past 7 years on major motion pictures and then also indie projects to really make sure that we're highlighting disability in the right way in our communities. But I have to tell you, just now giving you that snapshot, it's been a very trying time during COVID-19, especially when it comes to routine changes. And I've had to reinvent myself, as I know many of you on this call have probably had to, in terms of what your daily life is looking like. I went from, for example, April, where I was going to be speaking in 22 in-person events for World Autism Month, to having 20 of those events moved virtually and then 2 events canceled until next year, and having to basically go from an experience of being on the road, having book signings, being able to use that as additional revenue to pay my bills too, and now being involved in Zoom and GoToWebinar and all this. So one of the biggest things I had to do for myself to get through this transition was really establish a village for myself when I knew that this new routine change was going to lead to anxiety for me. A lot of people come up to me to this day and they say, Kerry, you have autism, but you don't look like you have autism. And I'm sure a lot of you on this call have had similar things said to you. But 2 of the biggest things that still I have challenges with autism to this day are routine changes and unexpected transitions. So obviously COVID-19 was 2 of those major challenges. So one of the biggest things that's helped me was really making sure that I was having daily virtual check-ins with at least a friend, a family member each and every day to avoid isolation. The other big thing that I really had to focus on, and it's something that I hope all of you take to heart on this call, is the importance of financing at this time. I went from a guy who every single day would have a iced coffee, cold brew at Starbucks, a $4 cup of coffee. And then when I realized that a lot of my revenue would be going down for this year, I realized like, all right, I'm going to have to cut back a little bit. I'm going to have to make my own coffee. Even small things like that, adding them up to realize that they truly make a big difference in terms of your finances. I also worked with our local legislators to make sure that we were really advocating for ABLE, which for people on the call is the Achieving the Better Life Expectancy Act. So we could really talk about the importance of tax-free savings accounts at this time. So we could really start saving up, especially to have a nest egg, which a lot of us really do need now because of the indications of more than 20 million individuals, at least in the United States, are filing for unemployment right now. So we're in a time where we don't know necessarily if we're going to be going into the next recession. We don't know necessarily when we're going to see this hiring freeze for many places go away. So the importance of really focusing on your finances at this time is something that I've constantly been talking about. And then the third thing is just really talking to our legislators about COVID relief. Obviously, one of the big steps right now is in the COVID relief fund, making sure that we are providing a time for family members to actually be out of work so they can be with their loved ones with disabilities. That was a big thing that I was advocating with Senator Menendez, a champion in New Jersey, but then also Representative Chris Smith, making sure that we were really emphasizing the disability community at this time and making sure that from a grassroots effort, we were really doing our utmost to make sure that we had legislation that was focused on individuals with disabilities at this time. And it's still a very trying process of actually doing this as we even look at schooling. Going back into school. I don't know if anyone has just seen all of the CDC graphics that have just been popping up on social media recently, but indicating how we're all going to have to have our kids go back to school at some time, and what that actually looks like for families, what that actually looks like in terms of virtual IEPs as well for those who are still at home, who aren't going to be able to go back to school right away. So in a nutshell, these are some of the biggest obstacles that not only am I facing, but what many of our families are facing in our autism community. But I want for everyone on this call, a main theme that I hope I can leave you with today is that you realize that at a time like this, you don't have to go about social distancing. You have to go about physical distancing. And why do I say that? I say that because it's so important right now that we constantly have mental health check-ins daily with our loved ones and remind them that even though we're away from each other, doesn't mean that we can't be social with one another. We need to change the narrative from even the CDC indicating we need a social distance at this time. I don't agree with that at all. I think we need the physical distance, but we have to remember too that we have a community of people out there who remind us each and every day that we aren't alone in this community, that you don't have to go through this by yourself. So I leave most of my presentation saying that it was a very trying process as somebody who was considered to have very little options when I was just diagnosed. I say autism can't define me, and I define autism, and I can only hope all of you on this call can go out there and define your lives and your journeys in the way that you best see it every single day, and know that there are self-advocates such as myself who just want to see you succeed and want to support you. Being on the board of the panel of advisors for the Autism Society of America and the board of the National Autism Association, I can't tell you how many calls we've received at this time, and that's just the universal message I want to leave all of you with at this time. So with that, I know we had allotted 20 minutes, but I just want to give you a snapshot for at least the first 15 minutes and then just open it up to Q&A, because I really want to answer as many questions as I can that our community might have at this time.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Your advice is definitely well taken. I think we all kind of are in that place right now where we got to think more about the future than just getting through the day. But the importance of staying connected. Specifically, you know, I'm going to take questions from everybody, but you touched on education, and here in Massachusetts, I think families who have children with autism are really struggling right now across the board, whether or not their child is able to really manage virtual learning, or it's starting to decline because of the fatigue of so much screen time and no real people. So, you know, given your PhD and all that you've experienced, how do you, what kind of advice do you give to families around this really challenging education environment as it goes forward as well?
Well, it's definitely about knowing your rights. I mean, that's first and foremost. It's really important at this time that one of the biggest things that I'm advocating for families in K through 12 is making sure that we're actually having a virtual IEP process, because a lot of our families right now are kind of deer in headlights. They're not realizing what services are currently available to them for their child while they're at home. And as mandated as part of the IDEA, there are a certain amount of services that a child should be receiving, even if there is a natural disaster. This being considered a natural disaster, there's still protocols in place that you should be receiving a certain amount of accommodations as part of telehealth and teletherapy. You should be actually having check-ins with your therapist. You should be having check-ins with your educators. And then, I mean, that's one of the biggest aspects. And then also just staying strongly involved with your parent advisory councils. I've been doing consultations at this time with special education parent advisory councils, PTAs, on just making sure that they're having mental health check-ins with their families at this time, especially for those who are in special education. Realizing that a lot of accommodations sometimes fall through the cracks, especially in this virtual situation that we're in. So just making sure we can support each other at this time is really, really key. And then relying on the social media groups. I mean, at this time, one of the big things that I advocate is for Facebook groups. I'm involved with probably over 30 Facebook groups I'm regularly involved in, ranging from memberships of over 40,000 people all the way to local groups that are just 15 people. So it's really important to, if you have questions, realize that you can rely on people in our community.
Thank you. Yes, that's definitely true. I know our community is really involved in Facebook, and it's been really helpful hearing from other families. But I want to open it up to anybody that has questions. I don't see anything in the chat, so if people want to just unmute and go ahead and ask.
This is Dennis Heapy Maura, and I'm wondering.
Hi, Dennis.
Hi, hi, everybody. I'm just wondering how folks are feeling about the governor's opening up the state, but not having a strategy for testing and tracking for vulnerable populations.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a process we are a little so even for example with my family right now, I'm in New Jersey, so we're going to have one of the slowest process of opening just because of the amount of COVID cases that we've had, being second in the country, which I was just talking to Maura about. I know that one of the universal goals right now is to provide more testing. That's something that President Trump has been advocating for. I know from just a nation perspective, that's something that we're trying to advocate for in all 50 states, more testing, especially as we open schools. One of the CDC recommendations was actually involving actually having temperature checks when students actually go back to school, but also maybe down the line actually focusing on actual testing if for whatever reason we come back in the fall and we see a second outbreak of COVID-19, which some people in the field are potentially mentioning might happen. So I know that's a big, big concern as of right now, but also going on to your local government's websites and actually seeing what places are in your area that are actually providing testing at this time. I know that even in my county, we have 5 centers that are currently open for COVID-19 testing. So it's really just about making sure that you know what's available in your local area right now, especially with things opening up. Does that help, Dennis?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm really looking for is more of a sound epidemiological approach, and that doesn't seem to be happening. At least if folks know of a state that is actually doing that, it'd be really helpful, because right now economies are opening up, but there's no sound epidemiological approach to testing and tracking, but also to providing PPE. And so you think of folks who don't have means, and are they going to be able to go outside? What's going to happen if someone with a developmental disability goes outside, but they're not wearing a mask because they just can't afford one? So it just seems as if there's going to be a real disparity taking place, and potential increased inequities and morbidity and mortality across the country for folks with, who are vulnerable. And so I guess. So I don't think, I wish I could say your answer made me feel more easy, but if anything, it sort of increases my sense of thinking we need a more concrete response.
Yeah, absolutely. And PPE is of the utmost importance. I know that's something that I'm advocating for here in New Jersey. It's something that I've been really pushing by local legislators right now, and the priority of PPE along with testing right now, especially as we see the numbers go down. I feel also a lot of people, just on what you were saying about masks. I mean, I go out on a daily basis just for my own mental health, get a little vitamin C every single day. And I know a lot of individuals who can't do that right now, and not seeing everyone really actually focus on social distancing really makes us realize the importance of only spreading awareness and education about the importance of keeping 6 feet away, making sure that we all are wearing masks at this time as well. So just know that I'm sorry that my answer couldn't help in terms of leading to less anxiety, but do know that we are advocating for PPE. We are focusing on getting more testing out there, not only on a local level here in New Jersey, but on a national level, talking to our senators, but also our state senators at this time.
Thanks, Kerry. I think we're all focused on that in different states, and obviously with the reopening, there's tons of concerns for, and for our adult population, you know, at our homes and day facilities, and how are we going to make this work? So I think we're all behind, but as we look to open up, we're really scrambling.
Yep.
So, but I think Faith had something, if you wanted to add, Faith.
Hi, sorry. I thought I was doing that from the chat box. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, go, yeah, either way, but yeah, we can hear you.
I just wanted to, when Dr. Magro was speaking about students with IEPs and needing to get those accommodations and so forth, I just wanted to throw out that the Federation for Children with Special Needs, which is located in Boston, but also has offices in Western Mass, has a call center helpline for parents. I don't know the 1-800 number by heart, but the local number is 617-236-7210. And they're open, they're actually working remotely as far as I know still, and they can answer questions if parents are having challenges getting students' needs met, and lots of kids are having a hard time connecting virtually. So, you know, finding out what the kind of temporary new rules are, but just to know that like all the timelines and the procedural safeguards are all the same as when we were in school physically.
Right. Yep. And yeah, that's a great mention. I also would love to just mention cdc.gov. I've bookmarked that on my my computer for the past few weeks now, because they've, as you were mentioning, they've definitely been breaking down timelines of everything going on, but then also breaking down local from the state level what everyone is doing in terms of the COVID-19 crisis. So yeah, really good resource though.
Okay, I don't know if anyone has any other question. I have one more that I wanted to ask, but go ahead and unmute if you have a question. Okay, Kerry, I wanted to ask, actually, we had a focus group the other day about adults with autism and other intellectual developmental disabilities who are actually doing better during this crisis, because social anxiety has gone down, that they're actually more comfortable online versus in sort of crowded day programs and group homes, and that things have settled enough that anxiety has gone down for some people. So I didn't know if you you know, wanted to comment on that in terms of just the broadness of the spectrum, whereas, you know, even on in people with no intellectual disability, there's a broadness of needs.
Sure. So I don't know if anyone follows the online website Spectrum. Spectrum has been doing a lot of scientific related journal articles on their website. And one of them that they just posted was actually talking about how individuals with Asperger's and a wide range of previous categorizations that are not part of the DSM-5, but people who classify themselves with Asperger's or high functioning autism, although I hate that characteristic in itself, but individuals in that realm actually being able to cope pretty well with this situation. I've seen a little bit of a mixed bag in our autism community. I've seen a lot of, for example, even my friends who are on the spectrum who are very much more introverted in nature, being really okay with this situation of being a little bit more isolated. But again, it is a very wide spectrum. As Stephen Shore, my dear friend, says, if you met one, you met one. So it's really just realizing the importance of mental health check-ins for everyone right now, because we're all taking COVID-19 differently. So it's important that we're really just trying to establish that rapport, especially for adults right now. One note I'll actually mention on this call today is that we actually just realized that there's a bigger population of adults with autism than we actually realized. Well, many realized. The CDC just did a survey for the first time on adults with autism, indicating that there are over there's over 2% of adults with autism in the United States who have some form of autism spectrum disorder. So it's a very big number, indicating that just about over 5 million Americans who are adults with autism, after statistics in previous years indicated that there were only 3.5 million Americans in general who had autism. Now we're seeing indications of over 5 million just adults. So not really knowing even the child population of that. So it just goes to show the importance of actually receiving supports and spreading awareness for this community. So we're making sure no one falls through the cracks at this time.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think it also means that we really need to take an individualized approach to how people come back from this crisis and look at what works and what doesn't work and really try to make this more individualized. But thank you for the info in the chat. And Kerry, thank you so much for being with us today. And it's great to know you're out there advocating on a federal level with your state and keeping everybody just up and informed, and through your social media and all the scholarship things you do. It's really great to have you in our community.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so glad I had the opportunity to do this. If anyone wants to stay in contact after this, please go to my website at kerrymagro.com. There's a contact form where you can get in touch with me, but also learn a little bit more about my social media channels, my nonprofit organization, and a little bit more about what I'm trying to do for the community, especially with COVID-19 resources on my website at this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right.
Anytime. Talk soon, everyone.
Okay, take care, Kerry. Okay, I think do you have a question, Dennis? Is that a hand up?
No, it was actually just an applause.
Oh yeah, okay, I didn't know that applause. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen just to get back to my presentation. So on a minute here. I'm technically challenged here. No, it keeps going back to the end. Okay, so speaking of individual, I start with my little update on my own kids. So this week, we're staying strong, kind of with some new challenges. Still can't seem to keep the mask on my 18-year-old son, Neil. And we really need to focus on that because, it's been, I don't know, about 70 days now that he's been home from his residential placement, but it looks like he's set to go back in early June. So whole new set of circumstances for our family to worry about in terms of his safety when he does go back, and his ability to manage the social distancing and the mask wearing if necessary. Yeah, just another challenge ahead. Since we're kind of running over, I just wanted to quickly go over some state updates. And obviously there's more questions than there are answers with the reopening. So I'm sure all of you heard the governor's phases, and in particular, the ARC is looking to get very busy on advocacy right now. In one area would be around day programs, and we definitely need your input on that. We did have a focus group last week, and we got some really great information, but we'll probably be putting out another survey and really looking to figure out the best ways and the best feedback we can give to DDS as they're working to make this happen. And of course, the testing and the contact tracing continue to be key. Given the update, we didn't hear much around special education year-round IEP students, so I think still very unanswered questions for how a lot of our kids will go forward through the summer and even into the fall. Overall, we are seeing a downtrend everywhere, although yesterday was upsetting with for some reason Wednesdays seem to be a spike day, because every time I go to do my presentation, I look at the day before and I'm like, what happened? But overall, we are seeing the slowing trend. About your legislature, they're still at work. The House just passed a $100 million tech investment bill, so hopefully we'll see that move forward, as everyone is so reliant right now on technology throughout the state, and there are definitely some geographic areas that really need some help. I also noticed that we got a 13-week extension in unemployment, and we now have 1 million people requesting unemployment in Massachusetts. So a couple of things to tell you, that the coalition meeting that's working on the coalition group that's working on crisis standards of care does have a meeting set with Secretary Sutters, which is great. And a smaller group is working on sort of the agenda and what we hope to accomplish in that meeting. For those of you who've been following that, that's really our goal, is to continue to improve those crisis standards of care, regardless that we're out of a rationing situation, and we don't really know if there'll be a second surge. But in general, these standards of care need to reflect non-discriminatory processes. So an update on the accommodations in the hospital, still working. I don't know if you guys saw the NPR story, but the Office of Civil Rights is making a statement around this, saying that the policy should balance safety and recognize the needs of those with disabilities. We still actually do have our template up on the ARC's website, so if you are still really interested in making a difference in this, you can write to your legislator. We're asking them to ask the governor and EOHHS to put guidance in place on a state level that ensures that people with disabilities can have a support person throughout their care in a hospital setting. And again, I mentioned the feedback that we had from our focus groups last week, and we were able to kind of come to 3 top priorities right now. And we're still obviously looking at many of the comments, and but really visitation policies for those in group homes. We really want to look at that in terms of making an impact on the way people can visit now going forward, outside visits, with PPE, walks with staff and the individuals. It's just been way too long, and the emotional strain of families really came through on our focus group. They're also really concerned about mandatory testing, so the fact that testing of staff is not mandatory. And so we want to work on that, especially in our vulnerable populations. It only makes sense. And then again, an individualized and flexible re-entry plan for every single person as they either return to school, residential, or combinations of those and day programs. So that's the state update. I would say continue to check back on the ARC of Mass's Take Action page on our advocacy tab, because we are going to be really pulling together some advocacy going forward around not just these COVID issues, but also the state budget as we get closer to July. And we know they're going to be focusing on that as well. And then please keep checking in with the ARC-US. The HEROES Act is with the Senate, and this is an act that really is one of the key stimulus packages for people with disabilities. So those are the two actions. And you know, thank you for joining us. I'm really glad that Kerry could give us his sort of take on this incredible crisis for people with autism. And does anyone have any questions? I have lost my share. There we go. Oh, we got some chat questions. Okay. Kids turning 22. Yeah, let me see if I missed any of this. Is there with breathing? Okay, so Diane says we just got a shield mask and it works much better in terms of putting it on, taking it off. That's awesome. May have to give that a try. I may have to find out where you got that, Diane. But yeah, I think we have to get creative and really work with individuals that can't keep those on. I wonder how difficult those would be to get in mass quantity. Dennis, on the turning 22, I think it's a major issue. We're seeing, I think I saw something like a 25% or more decrease in 688 referrals, which means they're not happening, which is a problem. So I think we really need to turn our focus on that. I don't know if you have more specific questions around those. You know, they're all individually working with their DDS liaisons around this, but if you're hearing of any particular problems, we would love to hear about that. Lucy says, I'm concerned that staff in group homes are not required to be tested for the virus and being allowed to work. Yes, I just mentioned that, Lucy, as an issue that we are prioritizing the non-mandatory testing. The ARCs that we are working with and some of our other providers have said it hasn't been an issue, like staff is willing to be tested, but we still feel like it's really important that it becomes part of a mandate. So yes, we'll be working on that. And if there's something that you guys can do to help, we'll definitely let you know. Okay, well, I think that's it for questions. And so I appreciate everybody's time today. And please stay well and really take it slow, and you know, hope to see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys. I want to leave.